This is my drawing of Frieren, and this is my drawing of Frieren around 3 months ago. Yeah, it sucks. Not exactly the Frieren we all know and love. I even tried drawing Fern and Stark, but it just kept getting worse. And at that point, I'd had just about enough, so I decided to spend 3 months of my life studying this little elf's journey, and here's how I did it. My mission? To draw something as if it was a shot from the anime. So to do this, I started off by planning out exactly what I needed to study, breaking everything down into its core components. This left me with 2 main things to study, backgrounds being composition, colour and architecture, and then character design, proportions, style and personality. And I couldn't help myself but get straight into the character design. So the first thing I needed to know to accurately draw the characters were their proportions. This actually ended up being quite a challenge, seeing as Fern and Stark actually end up growing throughout the whole show. But in the end, I settled on the heights we see them at the most. This had Frieren standing around 6 and a bit heads tall, Fern almost 7, and Stark around 7.5. Now at this point, I'm still pretty scuffed at drawing the characters, but at least I learnt their proportions, which meant moving on to the next step, design language. So, to help us with this, we're going to look at the official art books. These are packed full of useful information. Here you can see the design layouts for Frieren. I snapped a shot, and then using these, I decided to draw her, trying to recognise all the little design features that make her, well, her. One of the main ones being her ponytails. As I like to mention, hair is an extremely important part of a character's design. This, in combination with her ears, makes even a basic sketch of Frieren look exactly like her. Another thing we can take note of is her clothing. In the book here, we can see she wears a couple of different clothes. Anything from like a comfy gown to the mage outfit we see her in throughout the show. All these little things combined make any drawing utilizing them look just like Frieren. One final thing to note is her nose. I've always drawn my anime girls with a simple little button nose, but here it just doesn't look quite right. So we're going to go with a more realistic nose and even a nostril, and yeah, suits her a lot better, right? So now I had an idea of what I needed to look out for, I went on to draw Fern and Stark. And yeah, it works. They look so much more like themselves. Once I'd felt I'd gathered enough data about all their characterizing features, it was finally time to just start drawing them. This was such great fun, and by implementing everything I'd just learned, I was able to draw them and have them look way more like themselves. Still not 100% yet, but I'd say a solid 70, so we're definitely getting there. Right, now we have a fundamental understanding of our character's design, it's time to keep things interesting by quickly glossing over the backgrounds. There's a compositional cohesiveness throughout the whole anime. They use a lot of zoomed out shots where we can get a really good look at the character's location. And by adding some pretty large foreground objects, it really helps us, the viewers, feel how empty and large the world that our characters are exploring is. Another compositional thing to note is that they tend to keep the characters horizontally centered. So in our upcoming final piece, we're going to try doing exactly the same. Now, the architecture in the show completely changes depending on which village the characters are passing through. It goes anywhere from a little English/European thatched home to a 3-story red slate structure similar to what you might find in Prague, for example. In fact, using some photos I took of Italy last year actually allowed me to create this piece towards the end of my study. But I wasn't quite there yet, and I had a big hurdle ahead of me that I wasn't quite prepared for. Time to start drawing the final piece. So I took everything that we'd learned so far about composition, proportion, architecture, style, and started sketching some little thumbnail drawings. After getting one that I quite liked, I started drawing it out in more detail, but I just wasn't happy with how it looked. The composition felt off, and frankly, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. So I didn't let it get me down, and I thought, back to the drawing board! Let's try again. Completely unaware that this wasn't the last time I'd get this feeling. Anyway, I quite liked the idea behind the last composition, so I kept it the same. Though this time I decided to have her stood up. I added some line work, which is something I never really do with my art. Afterwards, moving on to the background, adding a bunch of detail, with the plan to blur it out in the future. Then I merged all my layers together and started doing some final rendering. But once again, I just wasn't happy. I tried changing a bunch of different things, but it just didn't feel right. It turns out that no matter how much effort or how much I was in the mood to draw, it just wasn't my art day. And honestly, this happens from time to time, so don't be too hard on yourself if something you really wanted to work out just doesn't. After all that, I was feeling pretty defeated, and even though it was already gobbling hours, 2 AM, I decided to draw one last Frieren sketch before bed. And as I was feeling really tired, I decided to draw a sleepy Frieren. I actually really liked it. Yeah, I'm not going to bed anytime soon. So I grabbed a quick cup of tea and started to colour her in. I started off by getting the base colours down, and then to keep things consistent I went straight to the background. This helps you tie your character to the background itself and stops you over brightening your character's colours. If you've ever found yourself working towards the bright end of the colour spectrum, try darkening your canvas and it will make a massive difference straight away. Now, remembering what we learned about the compositions used in Frieren, we can add some foreground and background elements. This helps liven things up while also giving a sense of scale, so it's a 2-for-1. Next, we're going to add some hard shadow, as well as bring some colour into the shadow itself, like a bit of red on the skin and a bit of blue underneath the hair. And now for my favourite part, we're going to merge all the character layers and just start painting directly over the top. At this point, we want to finally start cleaning our rough sketch and adding a bit of detail. Something I've learned recently is to only add detail to areas where you want people to look. So in our case, that's going to be the face, so I'm going to add a little bit more detail to the face and keep everything else pretty much rough and sketchy. This not only helps save time, but it actually adds a bit of style and character, so I like it. Now, to finish everything off, let's make our background grey and add some little finishing touches. One thing I genuinely didn't expect to take away from this study of Frieren is just how much it would change and affect the way I want to draw in the future. Frieren is such a special anime. Whether you like it for the well thought out characters, genuinely interesting story, beautifully designed backgrounds, as an artist, there's a lot we can take away from a show like this. And there we have it, 3 months of my challenging but extremely fulfilling study of Frieren. Thanks for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it.